Hey guys, my name is Max and welcome to Simple Biology. Today we're going to be talking about the nucleus, which is very important in biology. There's actually an entire classification of life called eukaryotic organisms, and that whole classification is based on the fact that all eukaryotic organisms have a nucleus. And so that was a very major step in evolution, and so we're going to be talking about the nucleus a little bit more in this video. The first major part of the nucleus that we're going to look at is what's called the nuclear envelope, or you might have heard of it as the nuclear membrane. It's actually two layers of membrane, not just one, which is why it's more often called the nuclear envelope. But I talked about this when we talked about the endoplasmic reticulum, in that space in between the two membranes is continuous with the endoplasmic reticulum. And so it's two layers, it has that space. Now, as you can see in this little picture, there's these pores, which are made up of huge multi-protein groups that allow substances and large objects to pass through, relatively large, such as ribosomes can pass through there, and RNAs, and of course the solution of the cytoplasm. And so those are the pores. And the nuclear envelope is basically involved in keeping all of the stuff that needs to be in the nucleus together. So the DNA has to stay in there, and the equipment involved in maintaining and transcribing DNA, which we'll talk about transcription later. But all that stuff is inside the nuclear envelope, and the nuclear envelope is just to keep all that together. The next little piece of the nucleus is what's called the nuclear lamina, which is just a bunch of protein strands, basically, and most of them are located inside the nuclear membrane, in the nuclear envelope, and they're involved in keeping the nucleus in the right shape. So it's just kind of the structure, the framework of the nuclear membrane or nuclear envelope. There's actually some evidence that there's an extension of the nuclear lamina. Maybe it could be called a nuclear matrix that would extend into the rest of the nucleus, even to where the DNA is stored. And as such, it may function in organizing genetic material. But this is kind of what it looks like. They just kind of interconnect, they connect with the membrane, and they pull everything into the right shape. Next we have chromosomes and chromatin, and these are both made up of DNA. That's their main component. But we'll talk about these a lot more when we talk about genetics, because the entirety of genetics is based on chromosomes, and inheritance is based on those, and all this kind of stuff. The DNA is organized by proteins. Now, DNA is a huge molecule. It's its length is immense, but by using these proteins, which are actually called histones, it can coil up and become small. Chromatin is the word we use to describe DNA when it's diffuse, when it's spread throughout the nucleus. But like I said, those histones allow chromatin to condense into chromosomes, and that happens whenever the cell begins to divide in a process called mitosis. Just a basic kind of structure of how chromosomes and chromatin are organized. There's a region called a telomere at either end of a DNA molecule. So there's two of them per DNA molecule, and that would be just kind of in this little area over here, and on the other end too. Whereas the centromere is the region of DNA kind of in the center. And that's where you can see this little brown protein complex. It connects to the centromere in order to keep two homologous chromosomes together. We'll be talking about that process later in our genetics unit. Lastly, we have what's called the nucleolus, and some cells actually have more than one nucleolus. They'll have several nucleoli, and it just depends on the type of cell and its stage in life. But the nucleolus is actually not membrane bounded, so it's not always considered an organelle. But essentially, it's a region of the nucleus, and it's where ribosomes are actually manufactured. So we've been talking about ribosomes in the last couple of videos. This is where they begin. In the nucleus, the ribosomal RNA that we've talked about earlier, it's transcribed from DNA. We'll talk about transcription in our genetics unit. But that's the process of creating RNA, which in this case, with ribosomal RNA, will be exported to the nucleolus, where along with several proteins that were manufactured in the cytosol and brought in, it combines to form those two subunits of the ribosome, which can then leave through nuclear pores into the cytosol where they will perform their function. And so that's really it for a nucleus. It's as simple as that.